Hello, I'm Rick Stivers with YoungMartin'sReels. Today we're going to be looking at things a little bit different. I've got this reel. It's a Pflueger Norka number 1335, and I was curious about this reel. The things that I saw on it said it was made around 1931. So I got to looking around and I just couldn't find much information on it. So I did some more research, and if you look on the back side here, right there, there is a patent, a group of patent numbers. There's 6 of them. And I was able to go on the internet and look up the patent numbers, and it gave me the details of how this reel came about, starting in 1907 all the way through 1928. So it's really kind of interesting. If you are interested, you can go out on the patent research line, and I'm going to walk you through the 6 patents real quick before we take this thing apart. But we're not going to spend a lot of time on that, but I just wanted you to know, it's for those of you who like to research things, that was a fantastic resource that I didn't know about until today. Okay, in the first patent for this, they actually filed it in October the 25th of 1906, but in this first patent, I got fishing reel grease on my page. On this first patent, they are submitted, it's for the spool itself. At this time, no one had come up with a solid construction or how to mount the 2 sides to the axle shaft and have it all as a unitized device. So this patent was for that portion of the reel. Okay, this patent was filed for in November 19th, 1921, was actually approved April 3rd, 1923. And this one, it actually took them, what, a year and a half to get this approved, but they had filed for the patent previously. And this one was for the oil caps on the end, so that you could adjust the tension on the spool using the oil caps, and that you could actually oil it without having to take the caps off. So this was, most of us who have fished with like, well, a lot of the Penn reels all have that same unitized construction, are all operated under this original type of patent. So this was the first time it had been filed for, and they were actually approved in April of 1923. So that was the oil style end caps. All right, the next one was filed for in June 26, 1924. This was the patent for the actual pawl and the pawl nut that operates on the worm gear. Most of you are familiar with these old style baitcasters that have the worm gear in them and the pawl assembly that's in there. Well, this was when it was applied for. That patent on that was June the 26th, 1924, and it was approved May the 4th, 1926. And that's the patent number. So that's when that Pflueger did an amazing job. He's got his signature in here, and he was very innovative. Okay, and this next patent, it was filed for on November 25th, 1922, and was approved November the 23rd, 1926. That is for the free spool release. And that includes the handle and the mechanism inside that shows it, so it allows us to go into free spool mode, removing it from the handle. And that was 1926. All right, this patent is a much more complex patent. It's 12 pages long, and in that we are dealing with the frame construction, how it's actually put together. They changed it up to make it easier, so this would be a stamped out model rather than all machined parts. And the other thing that they added was the clicker. Up until then, they had clickers, but the clickers would only function properly in one direction. His design here allows the clicker to operate in both directions, like so. So that's what this one had dealt with. Let's see what else was on there. I think that was it. Basically, it had to do with the design of the structure in the frame and the clicker. And then this final one, it was filed for May 23rd, 1925. It was approved November 13th, 1928. Came up with the removable worm drive assembly. This worm drive is designed so that it has 4 screws, 1, 2, 3, 4, and this whole thing comes out as an assembly so that you don't have to clean it in the reel. You don't have to completely dismantle the reel to take it apart. You just take those 4 screws out, then the worm drive comes out. You can take the screw and the pawl out, and the whole assembly can now be cleaned and then reinstalled without having to take the whole reel apart. So Pflueger really did a good job. I'm impressed. All right, so let's start getting this into this thing. I did have to make a special tool for this to get this to come apart, and I still haven't taken it all the way apart, but we're going to do it on this one. I also did want to say that all those patents weren't for this specific reel. All those patents apply to this reel, but they also apply to numerous other reels made by Pflueger. Okay, and I've managed to get this one all bound up with the line now. All right. Also, I've got a bad habit of picking this up and holding on to the thumb strap. And the thumb strap on this is your drag. So keep your finger off of that unless you want it to rub. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this knob off, or the handle off. Okay, handle's off. Now we're going to do exactly what the patent for the reel, that last patent, was about. And we're going to remove the 4 screws that hold the worm drive in. And all 4 of those are the same. We'll move them over to the side and keep them together. Now with those off, the worm drive will pull out as an assembly. And this can now be cleaned as an assembly. All you have to do is take the pawl out. There we go. Now that can slide side to side. And I don't recommend, I believe you can pop this out, but I don't think it's necessary. And I see I've got it staked in right here. I would not take that out. I would leave it in. I did all my cleaning of this part with it out, just like this, so that I was able to slide this back and forth. And what I did is I sprayed WD-40 down inside there, and I took a brush and kept scrubbing it until it came clean all the way across. I'm going to scrub it one more time, see if I can get it a little prettier, and then we'll oil it up and put it back in. All right, next, we're going to move on to this side case on this side, and we have 4 screws holding the side in, and all 4 of these are identical. I've had them out, so I know that. Okay, that assembly comes off the side. Now, in order to take this any further down than where it is right now, you have to remove this screw. Okay, when you go to remove that screw, what you're going to find is this nut assembly right here. And I'm going to transfer you over to my previous video where I talk about that now. All right, I discovered that when I got this far into this reel, that the next thing that was going to have to come out was this screw right here in order to take this apart the rest of the way. And in order to take that screw out, something has to hold this nut. Because if you look, when it turns, I gotta get the right size screwdriver. Okay, when this screw turns, that nut, it starts off fine, but then the nut starts to turn. And you have to have something to hold that in place, that nut, so you can unscrew that. Well, I've decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this screwdriver and I'm going to modify it to fit on each side of the screw and yet hold in the slot. Now, I could have ground the tip of this down to about here and I have a much wider tip, and I may end up having to do that before it's over with. But I'd rather keep the screwdriver small in the head if possible, and that also leaves me more for modification later for other screwdrivers if I need to do it. So we're going to try, I'm going to take the Dremel tool and we're going to cut this back a little bit and see if we can. I did grind it down on each face a little bit to make it thin enough so that the blade would fit into these slots. Okay, and I believe that it's going to work just fine once I cut it down. So let's give it a try, see what we have. Have my safety glasses on. Let's see if we can't get this cut back. That's part of my problem. I need to cut this way. It's going down instead of back up at me. Let's move this out of the way so we're not throwing filings into it. Nope, we're going to have to go just a hair more because it's still not wide enough. Okay. There we go. Now you got a screwdriver that works. Now, I bought a pack of these screwdrivers. I think there were 7 in the package, and I bought them from the Dollar Tree for $1.25. So you can buy them all day long like that and just keep modifying them all that you want. And you can have a whole collection of special purpose screwdrivers for doing these kind of tasks. Okay. Okay, now that we've shot that, let's go in now and utilize our newly made screwdriver. And we should be able to hold one in place and rotate the other and unscrew this. Okay, that allowed the nut assembly to come off. Okay, and it fell down inside. There we go. There's the nut. There's the screw right there that we just took off. And it's got a slot cut in the end of it. I'm not real sure what the purpose of that slot is, but that, put those two together so we know they're over here. They go together. All right. At this point, we've got a screw here holding the bridge in. And this part here should come out. So we should be able to just take out the screw, this screw right here. That's the final bridge screw. It should come right out. Let's get a heavier screwdriver. Hopefully that will fit in the slot. Nope. I might have to get a better screwdriver. All right, I need a better screwdriver for this, so I'm gonna have to go get one. Okay, I'm back. Another one of my 50-cent yard sale finds here. I took this, just took it out on my belt sander and ground it down to where it would fit this super thin screw that we have here, so we could take it out. And that's the last screw that's holding all this together. Okay, we've got that one out. Now this assembly lifts out. Now there's a sleeve under there. I'm going to lift this out so you can see it. Like so. This sleeve goes right there, like so. And that's going to fit inside there, and that allows that to slide. This whole assembly will slide back and forth. Now, let's see what else we got here that we can take off or might need to take off. All right, now there's no spring on the eccentric, which is kind of interesting. There's nothing to hold that. Okay, we'll go ahead and take this sleeve out for now. And is it possible I've got that upside down? Does that go? Yeah, that goes like that. Okay, so we'll take that out for the moment. This gear is held in by another one of these super thin screws. And a regular screwdriver just does not seem to fit those. Well, that one's actually wider. So we'll move up to my wider screwdriver. Take that one out, because I don't want to snap that little super thin wide blade I just made. Okay, that's got that one. That should allow this to come out, you would think, unless it's stuck. Okay, let's do this. Let's start the screw back in the hole and push down on the screw and see if that frees it up. Okay, put that in there and give it a light tap. There we go. Now it's broke free. You don't want to use force on things if you can help it. And that little light tap, that's not something I really consider force. However, if I'd pried on this, pull it out, that could have damaged this gear. Okay, so we've got a washer here. There's a spacer in there. And then we've got the gear. And I don't see any point in taking the eccentric out. All right, now we have two other devices here. This one is a tensioner. It puts tension on the side of the spool. See this ring right here where it's been rubbing? Okay, that's what that does. It rides on the side of that spool and puts tension. This one here, I think it's just a stop for the eccentric. Or for the levering bar. Okay, see what needs to come off here. All right, there, that's good. All right, I'm gonna clean all this up. We're gonna come back, relubricate it, put it back together. We're gonna pull the spool out and move it to the other side. The side plate's now clean. Let's see if we can figure out how to put it back together again. Okay, we're gonna start off by reassembling this part on here. We're gonna put the main gear back on. We're gonna lubricate the shaft and set the main gear back down on it like so. All right. Now we're gonna put this assembly back in. And this looks, at first glance, like this is a one of those plastic finale gears, but it is not. This is a bronze gear, and it's big and it's heavy. That's a really heavy gear. Okay, we're gonna put it back in. We're gonna add just a little bit of grease into the center of it, like so. I'll put a little bit more here. Put the washer back on, and then set this back down, and it fits into that hole right there. Like, I think that's the hole it goes in. Yep. Or, nope. It's that one. Okay, and that fits up inside there. It's got a keyway, and this is the larger of these two screws. Back on there like so. Now the gear turns, and it turns freely like it should. All right, now this, I'm pretty sure is the eccentric that goes, or the sleeve that goes here. And then this is going to turn upside down and right inside here. This, let's see, that's not going to go. It's, yep. The eccentric goes through this hole. This hole over here is the one in the screw. That's your pivot point. That's that odd screw. Or is it? No. Yeah. That's the odd screw. The one that I had to make the special screwdriver with the screw and a nut. Okay. We're going to put some more grease on the shaft here where it goes inside, right here. We're going to slip this down in there, bring this around, and drop this slot over top of the eccentric so the eccentric can move it back and forth. All right. Now, we're going to come back. I'm going to put this screw in. That's the one I had to go make the other special screwdriver for because it's got the really, really thin slot. And why they made it that way is beyond me, unless they just didn't want you to take it apart. Get it started. There's my 50-cent yard sale screwdriver. Okay. Now we're pivoting, and now we have to put in this special screw and nut assembly. First, the screw goes down. I'm going to put just a little bit of grease in here because this has to pivot in here on this. Now we'll put the nut back in and get it started. And I think for getting it started, my 50-cent screwdriver will work. Once it screws down so far, it's going to push my special screwdriver, my 50-cent screwdriver out. You guys can probably see this better than I can. My eyesight's failing a little bit. And I didn't even need to put the screwdriver on the other side. Okay. And I've got it a little bit too tight because it's forcing the eccentric to really have to go hard. So we're going to back it off just a little bit. By the way, this is a like a locking nut. Okay, that's better, but it's still not good. Let's go ahead and put some grease on the eccentric itself. I should have done that before we put this on. There. Oh, that already moves much freer. Okay. Now notice what this does. When we move the eccentric, it moves this entire assembly. Let's bring it in a little bit closer, and hopefully I'll remember to move it back out. Okay, as this moves in like that, it's going to cause this gear to come into contact with the spool gear here. And when you change the eccentric the other way, it slides the gear back. I've got an Ocean City reel that functions that way. I think it was an Ocean City 930. I think that's what it was. But there we go. And I'm wondering, I might have that a little too loose. The head of that nut should not move when we rotate. Unless the entire screw is moving. And it's still not. All right, let's do the same thing on the worm gear. Now we're going to move on to the spool. Let's take it out. We're going to clean it up on both sides. And this won't take but a second, so I'm not going off camera to do it. Okay, that's got the spool cleaned up. Let's go ahead and put some grease on the spool gear quickly before I forget it. Although there should be enough on that main gear to begin with that it doesn't need anymore. All right, now we're going to scrub up the rest of this frame. Trying not to get it all over the leather over here, so I'm going to try to be a little... Now, remember that patent was put in for this clicker design, and that is basically the same clicker design that was used in most of the level wind pin reels in much later. So, Pflueger originally filed the patent for that. So, now remember, other people can build things, they just have to pay you for the patent rights. So, that is originally a Pflueger design. All right, I'm back. The frame is clean, but this also gives you an idea of the unitized construction plans that they patented here. They made this so that these parts could be stamped out. Before this, things were being machined in machine shops to make these reels, and this allowed things like this assembly right here could just be stamped out of steel. No machining required. So that lowered the price, gave them a lower price point so they could enter the market at a much lower rate and people could afford to buy this reel. So anyway, let's get going back together. There's our clicker, there's our pawl assembly. We're going to put a little bit of grease on that, not a lot, just enough. I like to quiet them down just a little bit, and that's exactly what that does when you put that on there. Okay, I did notice that I've got a few loose screws up here, and people have been telling me I got loose screws forever, so that's all right. We're going to tighten this down, see if this one's loose. Okay, those are all nice and secure now. Okay, we're going to set the spool back in. I'm probably going to rewrap this spool. I'll probably take it out in the yard and run it out and then bring it back in. It's not very tight. There we go. Slide the spool in, and with it installed, we should have a clicker once we turn the clicker on. There we go. And there's our clicker. Okay, we're going to turn it off, make it easy to free spool. Okay, now this side plate is ready to go back on. Remember, we haven't done anything with this yet except take it off. So, because it can be serviced totally independent of the rest of the reel. Okay, so we'll set this back into place. We will align our holes. Get the screws all started. Okay, it's got that. Actually, I can go ahead and reinstall that handle. We don't need it off for anything else. So let's go ahead and put it back on. Like so. Put the nut back on. Okay, there you go. Now, let's clean up our spool. Our worm gear. What we're going to do is we're going to spray it. And I like to use an acid brush for cleaning these because the bristles will go down underneath and clean the metal behind it. And I do believe that this can be taken the rest of the way apart, but this is staked right here, and so I would prefer not to do it. I think you could probably pop it off from this side and snap it back in that way, but this was really black and nasty when I started out yesterday with this reel. I went ahead and took it off playing with it, so I mostly cleaned it up and made sure that the line guide will slide freely. Okay. I'm still getting grit on my fingers messing with it. So it's not clean yet, but it's close. I'm gonna wipe it off good, wipe my surface off good, wipe my hand off good, and we're gonna spray it one more time and see if I get more grit. Nope. I think we've got it cleaned out. All right, let's work now on our pawl. And it doesn't take much to clean the pawl. It's starting to, I think it's really beginning to get a little wear on it. But this reel does not have a spare pawl, and I don't know that there's one available for it anywhere. And we will clean out the end of the pawl cap. Make sure it's clean inside, which it was not. And we'll clean out the inside of the carrier, like so. Once more into the cap. There we go. All right. We're going to set the pawl into the carrier. And we're going to rotate the carrier just a little bit. See if it moves. Nope, it's not down in there. There we go. Now, we're going to put a drop of oil into the pawl and screw the carrier, the pawl cap back on. It seems to be binding. No, it's just I can't grab it with oily fingers. Okay. Okay, before you go all the way down, stop and make sure that it's free and turns like it should. Then go ahead and oil the channel well. this assembly is now ready to go back on. And what you do, let's zoom back out a little bit. You're going to slide it in just like it came out. All is one assembly. And make sure that you get the carrier arm back up inside this groove up here. And slide this in. Make sure your holes all line up and you're ready to put your 4 holes in. Now that's easy. That's a really easy way to clean that worm gear. I've never seen that on another reel, and I really like that feature. Of course, it does make it somewhat large and cumbersome, but it also makes it where you can get to it easily. All right, it's got all the screws back in. Now when I first got this thing, it wouldn't hardly turn at all. This one goes to Charlie back out at the flea market. He's going to be putting it in his booth for sale. It's a really nice reel. It was a fun history lesson for me, at least. Maybe I bored you guys to tears. I don't know. You can let me know in the comment section. Anyway, if you like this video, please hit the like button. If you didn't like the video, by all means, hit the dislike button. And tell me what you didn't like. And for now, that's Rick Stivers with Young Martin's Reels, signing out. Oh, by the way, before I do that, my next video should be the Ryobi SX2 that I've been promising. I am getting to it. I wish I had badges for the sides of it. But we're going to clean this baby up and get it up and running again. So that's my next video. All right. For now, that's Rick Stivers with Young Martin's Reels, signing out. One last thing for those of you who are interested. If you're not interested, that's cool. But if you go over to the comments below, you will find a link to my trip, my fishing trip that I did with OCD fishing charters. And you'll see I didn't catch any fish, but we had a tremendously good time. So if you're interested in seeing that, the link is below.